Now, the 5G network could be much more than just another telecommunications update for our GPS and our smartphones. Competition between the US and China over the global rollout of the technology reached a peak last week when the US Vice President Mike Pence issued a veiled warning to European countries about China's ability to compromise the network.
Professor Greg Austin is Deputy Director of the University of New South Wales, Canberra Cyber, and he joins us now from Melbourne to take us through the issue. Thanks so much for being here. Can you just remind us or explain to us to begin with what 5G is? What will it mean?
Well, 5G is more than just an update, as your colleague just said. It's a revolutionary suite of new technologies which will enable three things at the technical level. We'll be able to move data in large amounts very quickly. It'll reduce the ping speed between your mobile and the network, and we'll be able to connect many more machines, the Internet of Things. And so one practical example of 5G technology is that the driverless car, which we now have in prototype, which navigates its way simply by its own computers based on knowing the mapping of the area, will be talking to all other cars. So the 5G technology will enable driverless cars to talk to each other. 5G technology will enable drones in the air to talk to jet aircraft as they're coming into land. It will enable drones in the air to talk to each other. It will enable remote surgery. It will enable a whole range of things where we need lots of data moving at very quick speeds.
So if we sort of forecast, if we cast our minds 10 or 20 years into the future, can you just elaborate on what you just mentioned about the Internet of Things? You've given some examples there, for example, drones in the sky, but things like you just briefly touched on, conducting surgery from afar. What will it look like when everything's connected?
Well, it'll give us many more opportunities to do things which we don't even imagine right now. So in very broad terms, what's happening in the world of information technology today is like Christopher Columbus leaving the port in Spain to head for the New World. So what happened in continental America over the last 500 years is about to happen to the world in 50. So we're compressing time and space, and the pace of technological change from here on in gets massive because we'll be able to move big amounts of data. We'll be able to move them at speed in ways that we couldn't even imagine. And as one commentator put it recently, 15 years ago we didn't imagine Facebook, but where are we today? We've got things like Facebook. Well, we're going to see even more revolutionary uses of this new 5G technology. We're going to see a huge disruption to the telecommunications market. We're going to arrive at a scene where individuals can create their own 5G network and just use it based on some infrastructure that the bigger providers have put in place.
So when the Vice President says to his European allies that essentially you're either with us or against us, and you have to either back American technology on 5G or Chinese technology on 5G, and when Australia worries about Huawei providing the Chinese government with some sort of a backdoor into our infrastructure, is this not just about spying on what we're doing online, but about who controls our ability to essentially create a future in which all of the things around us, from cars to aeroplanes to hospitals, are connected in a gigantic network that could, be summarily switched off if an adversary was able to do so?
Well, the concerns stem from the fact that 5G is a radical technology, it's revolutionary, and governments like the United States and Australia have not found a way to separate the military uses from the civilian uses. And unlike earlier generations of mobile technology, the military could develop their own networks. But what's going to happen under 5G is that a lot of military activity will be integrated and almost inseparable from the civilian activity. So a 5G network anywhere is going to be effectively a military network or a network of military significance. And the Australian government made the point in its announcement about banning Huawei from 5G that they had not yet found a technical solution that could mitigate the risks associated with that. They didn't elaborate on this military point. And it's really an absence of imagination on the part of governments like Australia and the United States that they can't find a combination of political and technical measures to help mitigate the risk, because mitigating the risk is fundamentally important too.
And when the US puts pressure on its allies, as it has been, not to go down the route of allowing China to help build 5G networks, and obviously Australia and New Zealand have agreed to US pressure there, but it's uncertain whether all European countries will, and other allies like the United Arab Emirates are allowing Huawei in. Is the concern spying, or is the concern that if there were any conflict, China would be able to switch off communications networks?
Yeah, the concerns about spying are, in a sense, real, but they're not the bigger issue. The bigger issue is that the bigger fear is that a country like China could, in times of war, interrupt United States and allied military capability by turning off parts of the network or degrading parts of the network simply by its presence. And on the question of allied support for this, NATO is not going to vote as a group to support the United States position, because Germany and the United Kingdom both have reservations about the United States' fear. And the UK believes, for example, that the risks can be mitigated.
And what about civilian risks? You mentioned obviously there could be a military upper hand for the Chinese. What about just the idea of turning off civilian networks to create chaos in a country in case of war?
Well, they could do that, but China can do that in 100 ways already without having any role in the 5G network.
Right.
And what we have to take account of is the political likelihood of China doing that. And there is a low risk of war between China and the United States and China and Australia, especially in the run-up to the 100th anniversary of the setting up of the Republic of China on Taiwan. So we do face a risk, but we have to manage those risks politically and technically. So I think that's where we have to go, and we need a bit more imagination, a few more audacious people like Christopher Pyne to help us get through those sorts of challenges.
Professor Greg Austin, great to talk to you. Thanks for sticking around.
Yeah, thanks, Josh.